Right? See, the reply size is 32. Okay, so maybe I want to see time to live. Right? You can see is my time to live is 80. Okay, so I can put a lot of different information which I want. So for one of the lines, right, say for example for the first line like this, right, I can see all the different information related to it. I can see the address, I can see what's the buffer size, whether is it fragmented, protocol address, what's the timeout, so timeout is 4 seconds, and so on. So there's a lot of different things that I can extract, and the way to extract it is pretty easy. Versus, if you use a native command line, it will be quite difficult. Okay, so again, you can do ipconfig, which gives me all of these things, right? My IP information, or I can do get net IP configuration. Right, and I get all the same things. So the difference is I can also output the, I can mess around with the output, right? Okay, so maybe I just want to see all the information that has the word interface. So I just see interface alias, interface index, interface description, right? So if I just put whatever that starts with interface, then I'll see different results. Alright, so I can manipulate the output, but ipconfig, you can't. Okay, so this is some of the core strength of actually using PowerShell commandlets. So we'll move into next what we call PowerShell commandlets, which are also known as native PowerShell commands. They have a standardized naming convention and syntax, easy to discover, and they return data objects, right? So look, so commandlet standardization. All the commandlets that you see is going to have this thing called a verb noun naming convention, right? So you have remove, which is the verb, and item is the noun, right, or the object that you work upon. Parameters to control the commandlet. So you have some parameter name, the argument that you want to supply to the parameter name, and then we have a switch parameter, which is more like a toggle, whether you want to force or you don't want to force, right? So this is a toggle. So dashes precede all parameter, right? So you just need to follow this simple understanding. You have verb noun followed by dash something, which is a parameter, and if the parameters accepts the argument, right? So you supply the argument as well. So you have things like get process, get service, right? You can restart service, okay? All of this you can run. And if you do not know what to run, or if you have some idea potentially what the command is called, you can actually do a discovery. So you would use get command to do command discovery. So if you just type get command, you will see all the commands available to your machine. You can do get command dash name asterisk user asterisk, and it will tell you all the command that fits this description, right? So that includes external command. So usually we'll do by filtering on verb or filtering on noun. So if I know I want to get some information, I do get command verb followed by get. So I see all the get the user, get the package, get whatever. Or if I'm working with something else, I'm working with the service, or I'm working with IP, then I will say get noun IP or get noun service. Then I will see the result. So this is much more specific, and it's much more helpful in that way if you know what is the noun that you're working with. Otherwise, you can search by command type, right? So you can search by commandlet, or you can search by functions or aliases, right? Or external application. So you can use that. And if you want to validate if a command works or a command exists, you can just do a get command followed by the command name. Okay. Before, you can use get command also to search for external applications, right? So if you do get command type application, then you see everything, whatever exe come out, right? So typically this is all the executable that's going to be in your environment variable, which is the path environment variable. Okay, so this one. Okay, so all the executable in all this path will be shown. Okay. So get command. So you can do something like get command verb invoke. So if you see my result, it is all invoke something. Okay, so invoke here typically means I want to run something. I can do get command noun service. So I can see whatever that has service in it. Similarly, I can change it to item. So these are all the item related nouns. If you don't know what you want to call it, sorry, if you don't know what's the command name, maybe you have a vague idea. It has whatever et, whatever net, something like this. You can hit enter and you see what are the result that fits. Maybe I have something related to my Hyper-V, so maybe I want whatever, and I'm working with the hard disk, maybe VHD, right? So I can see, oh, there's quite a few things related to VHD. Okay. Sometimes you need to search for the command type, so you can do get command. So you can specify command type, whether it's commandlet, you can have a lot. Stop it. Right, so all these are commandlets. Okay, can do type application. Stop it again. These are all applications, right? So you see, I have SFC, SFTP, SetX, SL, MGR, SLUI, Smart Screen, right? SSH, Keygen, Spooler, SV, right? So all these are executables. And then you can search for parameter name. So if you want to know all the commands that has a parameter called computer name, so you do a get command. You say I want to search parameter name, and I want to know which commands has parameter computer name. So all these commands has the parameter computer name. Maybe I want to see something else, maybe called credential. So these all use credential, right? So you can search for things. It's quite easy in this way. Any questions so far? If none, we'll go into command syntax. So how to use a command, what parameters are required, what are available, what data to expect to supply, right? So this is the syntax legend, and it is going to be a handful to try to remember this. So the way I simplify it is your verb and noun, which is your command name, is going to be pretty easy to identify. I will tell you that anything inside the square brackets, okay, anything inside the square bracket is optional. It is not necessary for you to do it. Anything that is square brackets like this together means that usually they are able to accept more than one value. Okay? So let's see. In this case, you have the syntax definition, right? So if you, for example, you get command name remove item followed by syntax, and you will see all the different syntax available, right? So you will see remove item, that's the command name, right? Required parameter, so again, it is not inside a square bracket, so you have to provide this information. So it is, in this case, for remove item, literal path is a mandatory thing that you have to provide. And in this case, string followed by two square brackets together, so that means it can accept more than one value. So you can put multiple paths. So all these are optional because they are all in the square bracket. These are switch parameters, so they don't accept any parameter value. So you can do recurse, means go through each folder and subfolder. Force means you don't prompt the user for a yes or no. What if confirm and use transaction are their own functions that they do, okay? So that's not the point that we're going to discuss for today, right? The point is that if they are inside the square bracket, they are optional, and these does not have any parameter, so these are optional switch parameters. Okay, so then you have something like this, right? So get content, the word pass is hidden, is optional, but then the string value is outside, so this is called a positional parameter. So you do not actually have to specify dash pass followed by some value. we can just use get content followed by some value, right? So it's just going to enable you to perform some form of a shortcut. So you don't actually have to type out dash path. Okay. So let's see what we can do with this example. So we can do
pag naunahan sila, ang the best pa niyan, gawa na natin yung mga gamit ng Obinay. Hila-hila natin sa Obify. Kasi pag nag-short minsan, nagdadalawa na sabay. Di ba?
Hindi, yung speaker yun na yun.
Yung speaker yun na yun. Kaya yung isang XP dyan, lalagay ulit natin doon. Kaya minsan kasabay sila, dalawa eh.
Tapos tanggalin na lang natin yung mga...
Ay, hindi pala PBL nga pala yung sabi kaya nila.
Then, baka kanila yung BBA.
It's already right. Okay. So on first glance, you can see that pretty much everything is inside a square bracket, right? So pretty much everything is inside a square bracket. That means I can run get child item without specifying anything, and it's just going to list down all the directory. So I can do get child item path as Windows. So this one will be using path, right? I can say I want to do additional things like filter, right? So I can filter whatever.exe, so I can see all the executable, and I have something like this recurse. So recurse doesn't accept any value, so I know it's a switch parameter, so I can say dash recurse. So it's going to go through every folder and subfolder. Okay. I have verb, noun, followed by my parameter, argument, parameter, argument, and recurse is a switch parameter. So it's just a toggle. Any questions so far? So then we can move on to parameter sets and positional parameters. So positional parameters allows you to take shortcut by skipping the definition of the parameter name. So many commanders have one or two positional parameters, always shown first in syntax, right? Values provided in order listed if more than one is present. So what does this mean? It means that many commandlets have one or two positional parameters, and then the first value that you give will automatically be passed to the first parameter, and then the second value that you provide is going to go to the second parameter. So in this example, like stop process, you have the option to do stop process ID 8660, or you can just shortcut your way and do stop process 8660. Okay, both will actually work. So if you are typing by yourself, no problem, you can use this form of shortcuts. But if you want to write scripts, right, then the best practice is to make sure you name your parameter for scripts when you're using it in scripts. This is to make sure that it is clear in your script. Okay. So what are parameter sets? So parameter sets are going to be the different ways we can actually send data to your command. So it may take stop process ID, or the stop process may take a name, or the stop process may take an input object. Okay, so there are different ways that you can work with your command, right? And then the PowerShell decides which set to be used based on the parameters that you have put in. So let's try get command name get service syntax. Okay, so again, similarly, pretty much everything here is covered by square brackets, so I can pretty much just do get service and I get all the service on my computer. Right, and then if you see get service has three outputs: name, display name, and computer name, like this. Okay, it is looking like this. So that means I have a few ways to do it. I can use get service, say ALG. I can do get service display name followed by this. Okay, or I can choose to do dash computer name. Alright. Okay, so I can do something like this as well. Get service, computer name, localhost. Okay. So I can show you maybe stop process, say I have a few tests. Get process WordPad. Okay, so I can stop process 7880. The WordPad is no longer there. Let me start WordPad again. Or I can say process dash ID. Oh, it's not 78. Dash ID 3480. So now WordPad is terminated. So I can use this sort of shortcut if I want to. Okay. Now, how do we really visualize parameter set? So the easiest way I've learned to visualize parameter set is from the ISE itself. If you show the add-on tool, then you will say get service. Right, so parameter set, let me import in. So parameter set will look like this. So the default one is this, display name and input object. So again, stop process. right? So I have ID, input object, and name. So imagine the parameter set is the tabs here. So what happens if I do something like this? Get service so I have display name. So I have name, I have display name, so name is here, display name here, and input object, right? So what happens if I do get service? LG, this works. Get service display name. This works as well. So what I cannot do is enforce display name and name. I have to use parameter that doesn't exist in the parameter set, then you will get an error. Parameter set cannot be resolved. Okay, because if I'm using name in this set, there is no display name. If I'm using this display name in this set, there is no name. So you cannot mix and match. Oh, I want to use display name here, I want to use name here, and I want to use something else, right? So you cannot simply mix and match the parameters. Questions so far? None. Okay. So then we will have things that is called commandlet common parameters. So there are parameters which are available in every commandlet. They are implemented by PowerShell and not by the commandlet developer. So many are typically used to override some of the system defaults that you may have, right? May not have an effect even though it exists. Okay. So the typical one will be debug is to display programmer level detail if available. Error action is how the commandlet is supposed to respond if there's an error. Error variable is to store the error messages in the specified variable. Okay, if it hits an error. Verbose is to display detailed information if available. And warning action and warning variable is going to be very similar to error action and error variable, which is to change how the commandlet responds when we see a warning and to store the warnings in a variable. Okay, so dash verbose, for example, is a typical common parameter that we will use. So if you guys have worked with VBScript before, some of the common things that we do is that if we see an error, we typically say that it's okay. If I see an error, I don't want the script to break or stop, right? Maybe I will handle the error later, but I don't want the script to stop. So we can do error action, silently continue. Even if it errors out, okay, no problem, script, please proceed to the next line. So we can do something like this, get service net logon. So this works. So you can do a comma win rm. So this works as well. And you can say error action, silently continue. So no problem. So if I do some nonsense here, I will just continue and move on, right? So the script won't actually break. Another example is start process WordPad. So I have my WordPad open. So let me pull up my WordPad here. WordPad is here. And this away. So I can then say stop process. Name WordPad. So I can use another one called verbose. So you just tell me, you give me a verbose output saying that performing the operation stop process on the target, right? And what's my target? It is WordPad with the PID 25932. Okay, so verbose can be pretty useful. Now, those are common parameters and they usually exist in the get commands where we are getting some information, right? We also have something called risk mitigation parameters. So these are more on the destructive type of commands. So we have two, which is a dash what if and dash confirm. So what if displays the message describing the command, what the action it will take, but will not actually execute the command. And then confirm will be prompting the confirmation before we do the changes. So this allows us to do testing, prevent accidental data deletion, right? And to make sure that we confirm before we set it off. So available on many commandlets, especially on destructive commands. So things like stop process, right? And dash what if is going to be very important so that you don't accidentally stop everything, so you can know what actually happens, you can validate. Start service dash confirm will prompt the confirmation. Are you sure you want to perform this action?
Gagawa ka pa rito, pwede mo namang i-ano na lang X. Di ba?
So you can say stop service bits dash what if. So it says that I will be performing stop service for bits. Okay. Okay, so right now it's stopped. So let me see if I can start service. Okay. No, admin. Let me open a window. So start service bits, get service bits, right? So bits is running, so I say stop service bits what if. So it says I'm going to stop it, but is it really stopped? It is not. Okay, so maybe if I remove what if, I do dash confirm. So it says, do you want to do it? I say yes. And confirm. Bits is in a stop state. Okay. So that's the use of what if and confirm. It's very useful. Questions so far? If no questions, let's take a 15-minute break. Okay, let's take a 15-minute break and then we will come back about 11